Hello, my name is David Brito, and I will be talking about the concepts of Mr. Taleb and his books. So, the first topic that I will be talking about is the ludic fallacy. So, what the ludic fallacy is basically the concept of applying statistical concepts to everyday events, as opposed to places that where you can apply those concepts. For example, casino. We know in a casino we know the outcomes, we know the odds, we know basically everything, and we don't have this unforeseen events happening. The deck is always gonna have 52 cards unless it's tampered, but that doesn't go along with it. And yeah, we just basically have all the variables that we need so that we can have the odds of the. We know for certain how much is the odds of you winning and how much it's the odds for you losing. There are no unforeseen events, unlike in real everyday life. Um, we don't have all the variables into play. We don't know everything that is out there. Basically we don't know much of the things that are gonna happen. I can just say that what's the probability of me making it to the street? I don't know because an unforeseen event may happen, and which is called a black swan. And I will go on ahead and start describing what a black swan is. So the black swan is, as I said, an unforeseen event out of the ordinary that we have no idea how it came into be. We had no previous records of it. We didn't know anything about it basically. And how Taleb describes it is the event. He always points out the statement, "All swans are white." And then we came along to Australia and we discovered that there was a species of black swans. So that just disproves this statement. And that statement was thought of because we only we only saw white swans, and through induction, which is the problem with induction also, because we had only seen that swans were white. We thought, oh, okay, then that must be the case that all swans are white, but that is not the case because we did not have all the variables. We didn't see that extreme example, not necessarily extreme, but just that example of something that we hadn't seen or thought of before coming into play. And that is the problem with induction also. Induction just takes the events of the past, and based on that, we come up with inducing, like induction, like thinking of something in the future that will happen because of the events that happened in the past. And that is not always the case. It doesn't take into account that things change, they don't stay constant. There are always many factors that we cannot possibly take into account. Um, I will go on to discuss the narrative fallacy and the survivorship bias. So the narrative fallacy is basically when you put your own narrative into the events that you just saw. So for example, a very basic way that I think of it is, oh, why did the chicken cross the road? Okay, many people you just think, oh, because it wanted to be get to the other side. But then at that point, you're adding your own narrative to the story, to the events that you just saw. The events that you just saw was just the chicken crossing the road, and then when you add on to that, oh, the chicken crossed the road because it wanted to get to the other side. That's when you're adding your own narrative into it. That can be the case also when when you see your favorite sports team winning, you think, oh, it's because they had better players. They're just better. And when you see them losing, you just think, oh, they just had the worst chances. They didn't. It was a bad day for them. You're just like making excuses for them, and that is like our own narrative, adding into the events that you just saw, and that goes along with the survivorship bias. So along with that example, you just see your favorite sports team win, and you just think, oh, it's because you just see like their traits, why they won, and then you think, oh, those other teams that they didn't win, they they didn't have what it took to win the game, and not it may not necessarily be the case. There may be some other circumstances that we didn't take into account, like I don't know, just a bad day for a player, like a player just couldn't make it or something. Another better example for this is like going into war, and you just see the people that did make it back, that did survive, and you just see their characteristics, why they won and why they came back and all of that, and you just throw the rest of the people that didn't come back, and you don't see why they didn't make it back. It may be just by pure chance they were at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they may be the best soldier ever, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they had to make it back. As opposed to someone that didn't make it back, and maybe it was because he was a coward or something. I'm just making statements over here. Um, and just because of that, okay, they did make it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that his traits, his characteristics are the best for what his job was. Um, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do the scandal of prediction. So the scandal of prediction is basically the notion of us humans thinking that we can predict the future based on the experience and the basically the information that we have from the past that goes along with the induction problem. There was a survey done that 98% of people thought that they could predict the future based on some information that they were given, and that is just plain wrong. We don't know. There is no way that us humans can know for certain how to predict the future. There's just no way. That's just a notion that we have, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it is the case. Um, which is I'm gonna go ahead and go along to Locke's definition of a madman and the notion of medio-Christian and extremism. So, because they play along with each other in the story. A medio-Christian is someone that just doesn't take risk, which is how he described himself, Mr. Taleb, in his book, as opposed to an extremist who always takes risk and may be like a big winner or a very bad loser. And he describes this person at his job as a stock. It's always very weird with that job title, like a stockholder, some stock. It's something about stocks, and so at the beginning he thought that he was a very good salesman because he wasn't an extremist, and at the beginning he was very good. He got very wealthy and all that, as opposed to Mr. Taleb, who he was on the other hand very he was gaining money, but not as at a rate as the other person was, and that came to a head when the stock market broke, crashed, and that person who always took the risk and everything crashed along with it, as opposed to Mr. Taleb, who did take a hit, but since he had other methods that weren't so reliant on the stock market, which is very explosive, he didn't suffer a loss as big as his his partner, not his partner, but his office worker thing. Yeah, sorry. Uh, so yeah, that's just like the definition of those two, and his colleague would be the definition of a madman, someone who, because at the beginning he thought that he was the best at his job because he always did this one method, uh, but not necessarily it was the right one. So he came into the right outcome with a bad logic. So at the beginning he thought that, oh, okay, I'm the best one. I have to do this one method of doing things, and because of that, at the beginning he was very wealthy. But then when the market crashed along with him, he crashed along with it. So the definition of a madman, just to make it clear, is someone who comes to the right conclusion with wrong reasoning. Yeah. So just gonna go ahead and finish up with the bell curve and why it's an intellectual fraud. So yeah, we just try to apply the bell curve to everything in our lives, and it's not necessarily the case. Like, it shouldn't be that way because we don't take into account the black swans and the white swan, the black swans in our lives. So the extremes just get all muddied up, and just we shouldn't try to put everything into that one capsule, the bell curve. So we shouldn't use it for everything. All right, this is the end. I'm running out of time. Thank you.